UTAR is a university which upholds learning, teachings, and research excellence. So today, we are bringing you the topic, the science behind hand sanitizer. And this is the sharing by our lecturers from Center of Foundation Studies, Kampar campus. We are proudly invite Mr. Lionel as our moderator and two panelists, Mr. Ho Wai Yew and Ms. Chan Jer Jing. So after the sharings, there will be the Q&A sections. Audience, please feel free to put your questions in the columns of Q&A in the Zoom. Due to the limited hours we have, sorry that we may not able to answer all the questions. Only the selected will be answered on air. So Zoom as our main platforms, we have also shared the live to Facebook page, UTAR for you simultaneously. If you happen to have any friends that not able to join us in Zoom, kindly join us at UTAR for you. Now, let us welcome Mr. Lionel, today's moderator, to host the webinar. Mr. Lionel, please.
Thank you very much to our host, Mr. Tam. Good afternoon to all our viewers on Zoom as well as on FB Live. On behalf of the Center for Foundation Studies, Kampar campus of UTAR, I would like to welcome you to our webinar session for today, specially titled The Science Behind Hand Sanitizers. Now, just a few technical reminders before we proceed. Could I just have all UTAR staff and students pay close attention to the slide that's on display at this moment? There are USSDC points and CPD points available. All you will have to do, UTAR staff and students, is to, right now, scan the QR code that's on display or access the form, the link that is on display. And as mentioned by Mr. Tam, our host, a little while ago, towards the end of this webinar for today, there will be a special Q&A session. However, throughout these two talks that we have planned out for you, please feel free to type out the questions that you have in the Q&A box that you'll notice at the base of the Zoom screen, right? You'll also notice a chat box on the right. Kindly refrain from putting your questions into that one because it will be difficult for us to trace them. So once again, please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box in the Zoom at the base of the screen. So dear viewers, it's now the middle of June 2020, and it has been clearly an eventful year for myself and for all of you, and almost everything about our surroundings has changed in the climate of COVID-19 or the post-lockdown or MCOs, right? Now, you've most likely noticed personal safety and well-being is becoming the top priority for people, not just in this country, but all around the world. And if you are tuned in from Malaysia, just like the panelists and I, you're most likely feeling right now a sense of relief as the entire country moves on into the Recovery Movement Control Order, the RMCO, which by default is designed to relax a lot of the initial restrictions that were placed, right? So it has generally made it a lot easier for us as a community to move around. However, dear viewers, as we find our way back into our workspaces, our schools, supermarkets and food courts, public transport, tourist spots, one thing that we cannot afford to forget, and it has constantly been reminded to us by medical experts, is that preventive steps must be taken. So in our daily lives, we've been advised to include specifically 3 kinds of preventive measures. Number 1, practicing social distancing. Number 2, putting on face masks. And number 3, which is our topic of focus today, ensuring that our hands are properly sanitized of bacteria, and especially pertinent for our webinar today, viruses. Now, with the third step in mind, dear viewers, the third step as to how we sanitize our hands, we begin to encounter 2 real concerns, 2 situations of problems for most of us. Number 1, it is ensuring that we have a ready supply of hand sanitizers. Number 2, are we able to ensure that we're using legitimately prepared hand sanitizers in the correct way? Let's face it, because of this increase in attention and importance being given to hand sanitizers, dear viewers, there's been a huge increase in demand, right? And hand sanitizers are right now, unfortunately, what it could mean is that there is a growing number of retailers that have been cashing in on the hand sanitizer market. And it's no secret that some products have been proven, as reported in news articles, have been proven to be problematic, either causing harm because of incorrect proportions or being downright fake. So as consumers, viewers, what is it that we need to do moving on into this post-MCO era? We need to protect ourselves, but how do we achieve this? Well, apart from being very careful when we purchase hand sanitizers to check and make sure that it is legitimate and it is correctly prepared, we can also, now this is important, under the guidance of capable adults or carers, we can actually make our own hand sanitizers, which brings us to our central focus for today's webinar, the science behind hand sanitizers. Our first speaker for today, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. Ho Wai Yew. He's a lecturer with the Department of Science and Engineering in the Center for Foundation Studies Kampar campus of UTAR. Mr. Ho holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Biomedical Science and a Master of Science, both attained from University Tunku Abdul Rahman. He's currently pursuing his doctorate studies with the Faculty of Science in UTAR as well. He's researching the role of commensal bacteria in the human gut. Mr. Ho, our first speaker, is an active proponent in the field of microbiology. He's published several ISI papers, ISI peer-reviewed journal articles to be precise. Our second speaker, none other than Ms. Chan Jer Jing, is a senior lecturer with the Department of Science and Engineering, the Center for Foundation Studies, Kampar campus of UTAR. Ms. Chan holds a Master of Science in plant pathology, which she obtained from the Biological Sciences School in USM. Ms. Chan is an academic staff who is equally active in developing curriculum and building learning materials. Both our speakers today, ladies and gentlemen, they are both very strong advocates for STEM education. And they come to you very firmly with the philosophy that science education should be made available to everyone. So, I've introduced the speakers. I've brought you a little bit of introduction to the topic. What do we have lined up for you today in this webinar? Well, let me put it down this way. It is safe to say, very excited to tell you, we have something for almost everyone who's watching, who's tuned in. For the science buffs out there, those of you interested in beginning research or interested in the technical aspects or the chemical compounds that go into hand sanitizers, we're definitely getting you covered. You will be fed lots of information pertaining to how hand sanitizers are actually formulated and the details into the chemical compounds that go in. For those of you who are just merely curious, don't worry, we've got you covered as well. We have a run through of the history and development of hand sanitizers. I'm sure attract lots of attention. Will help you prepare your own hand sanitizers. Look out for this and stay tuned. And for the rest of us, or all of us in general, there is a lot of cautionary information as to how we use hand sanitizers. Now, dear viewers, I will now welcome to the first segment of our webinar, Mr. Ho, the first speaker. Now, good afternoon, Mr. Ho.
Okay, thank you very much, Lionel, for your kind introduction, and good afternoon to everyone. Right, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon for this webinar. So the title of our webinar is The Science Behind Hand Sanitizers. So everyone is aware that we are in the midst of a pandemic, which really happened, right? So as part of the scientific community, we would like to contribute towards a knowledge building. As what Lionel has said earlier, we at University Tunku Abdul Rahman believe that science is for everyone. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown that science knowledge is extremely important. So the public needs to be well informed about the science behind the pandemic. So we have deliberately chosen this topic because we feel that it's very relevant to everyone, not only for science students or science practitioners, right? So without further ado, let me begin my presentation. But before I begin my presentation, let me walk you through the history behind hand sanitizers. So ladies and gentlemen, today we know that good hand hygiene is extremely important in preventing transmission of pathogens, of course, also COVID-19. So let me give you examples here. So these two visuals have been circulating around the internet. If you are logged into social media, I'm sure that you have chanced upon these two images, right? The one on the left is based on the study by a Japanese public broadcasting network, whereby they demonstrate the importance of hand in transmission of germs. In their experiments, they substituted germs with fluorescent dye, and afterwards, they use a capturing device to show how the germs have been transmitted all over in a buffet setting. The image on the right is made by a scientist and is published by the American Society for Microbiology, which show a thumbprint of a child, right? So they culture the bacteria, right? As you can see, there's a massive growth of microbes on the plate, right? So images like this are extremely effective in informing the public about the importance of hand hygiene. Good hand hygiene is extremely important to prevent the spread of pathogens. I am very sure that every one of you would not disagree with me, although not everyone would have practiced it. So it's hard to imagine that the situation is quite different in 1846, right? So in 1846, people do not believe in hand hygiene, or rather, people do not see the relationship between hand hygiene and mortality rate. However, this Ignaz, which is a doctor in Hungarian, he was actually the one who noticed a relationship between the mortality rate between two hospitals. So he was actually a doctor in one of those hospitals. If I'm not mistaken, it's Vienna General Hospital. All right. So he noticed that in the first clinic, as you can see from the chart on the left-hand side, in the first clinic, the mortality rate is consistently higher than the second clinic, right? So these are both clinics they apply the same techniques in delivering children. But how come the first clinic has such a high mortality rate? So it actually causes him to be curious. So upon further investigation, he found that the first clinic was actually run by medical students and also professional doctors. Surprising, isn't it? Whereas the second clinic were actually run by midwives, your bidan lah. So in Malay, we call it bidan. So everyone know what is bidan, right? Okay. So what actually happened, right? What actually happened in the first clinic was that these medical students, medical students, they have to deal with cadavers when they are training. So after dealing with cadavers, some of them do not wash their hands, and some of them, most of them do not sanitize their hands. So after playing with the cadavers, they move on to delivering children. So what happened was there's a transmission of germs to the mothers. So it actually caused the mortality rates to be higher. So Ignaz actually published his findings. He's actually a very vocal proponent of good hand hygiene. But unfortunately for him, he was actually admitted into a mental asylum because the scientific community at his time refused to believe him. So he was well ahead of his time lah. So fortunately today, we know that what Ignaz thought was actually correct. So this is a pretty interesting story, right? So if you believe in something, make sure you fight hard for it. So let's move on to the main part of my presentation. Okay, so the pandemic has caused a panic among people. So I believe that most of you will notice that hand sanitizers fly off the shelf at a very fast rate. Okay, in fact, it has only been replenished recently. So it's actually a good thing because people have very good awareness about hand hygiene. But we noted that there's a lot of misinformation and also misunderstanding going around. So Ms. Chan and I are set. We would like to improve the understanding about hand sanitizers. All right. So hopefully we could contribute indirectly to the fight against COVID-19. So here I present to you 3 news articles You see people drinking hand sanitizers. You see the price rising. You see fake sanitizers being sold on online platform. Okay, so today in my presentation, we are here to set the record straight. Our focus will be on alcohol-based hand sanitizers. So in my presentation, I will first walk you through the history behind alcohol-based hand sanitizers before moving on into the ingredients that go into the making of hand sanitizers. And last but not least, I will touch a little bit on the safety aspect of alcohol-based hand sanitizers. So let us define what is antiseptic hand rub. So basically, they are preparations designed for application to hands for reducing the number of viable microorganisms. So let us make it clear. The purpose is not to keep our hand totally void of microorganisms. So some people think that they would like to keep their hands totally free of microorganisms. So let us tell you here, it is quite impossible. In fact, our hands are naturally full of microorganisms, including commensals. So please don't apply this hand rub excessively throughout the day. So these hand sanitizers can be classified into two main broad classes. The first one, which is our focus today, would be alcohol-based hand rub. The second one would be non-alcohol-based hand rub. Okay, is usually based on benzalkonium chloride. So these two different types can be found widely in the Malaysian market. So it doesn't matter how they package it, but by the end of the day, you see that there are two main classes. So when we are discussing about hand sanitizers, it's very important for us to keep in mind about this concept. We are interested to know whether our hand sanitizers, or rather the main ingredients, are Cidal or static. Now let me tell you more on this. So when we describe something as Cidal, means it kills the microbes right away. And when we say it's static, it's akin to kryptonite. So when you watch Superman, the kryptonite doesn't really kill the Superman directly, it just causes the power to decrease. So this is very important concepts to keep in mind, Cidal and static. So now let us have a look at the history. So many people would ask, who actually invented the gel-based hand sanitizer? So in 2012, the Guardian newspaper, which is a newspaper based in UK, supposedly answered this question. So it's attributed to Lupe Hernandez, 1966. But is it true? So apparently it's a myth. So the Smithsonian history, the personnel in Smithsonian Museum, actually launched an investigation. So they find out there's no basis to this publication. So apparently they couldn't find the biodata of Lupe Hernandez. So if you were to look through the publications, the scientific publications, you will notice that in the late 19th century, the publication starts to appear, right? So in the beginning, there are publications to say that that noted the antimicrobial effect of alcohol. And later on, they find out that in order for alcohol to work effectively, you need to have a little bit of water. A little bit of water. You see why later on I'll explain to you. And then in the 1960s, the alcohol hand rub began to be commercialized in German. So you can see from this picture over here. Actually, the term alcohol has been appearing in a patent database since 1908. And in 1990s, in the early 1990s, it became widespread and is available commercially in the market. Now, let us move on to the main part of the presentation. Let's take a look at the ingredients. So what is the main ingredient, or rather the active ingredient? So it's worth keeping in mind that only 3 alcohols are recognized to have substantial antimicrobial effect. The first one, ethanol, which is found in your alcoholic beverages, okay, that give you the kick when you drink, right? The second one will be isopropanol, The other one will be propan-1-ol. Isopropanol and propan-1-ol, they are isomers, meaning to say that they have the same amount of carbon and also the different constituent. It's just that it differs in terms of their arrangement. So between these three, ethanol and isopropanol are more common. Propan-1-ol is more common in Europe countries. Okay, so let us explore the important properties of this alcohol. So generally, we can say that they are bactericidal, fungicidal, and virucidal, meaning to say they have the ability to kill these microbes right away. Terms and conditions apply. I'll explain later. However, they do not have persistent activity, meaning to say that after they have done their job, they will evaporate and they won't have a lingering effect. And also, they are drying to the hand. So perhaps this is the downside lah. And now let us look at the inactive ingredients. So when we look at the inactive ingredients, you find many strange names lah. But don't be discouraged by these because the concept is quite simple actually. It's just the name that is daunting. So first up, we have water, or in some hand sanitizers, they will brand it as aqua, so that it sounds more professional and so that you are more attracted to buy their products. When we hear aqua, then it sounds more professional lah. So this water serve to dissolve the thing and also as carrier. And then you find thickening agents. So example, you see things like acrylates, ethyl acrylate cross polymer, xanthan gum. So what do? So they give the hand rub a gel-like consistency so that it doesn't pour out easily, so that you can control the flow better. Next, we have pH adjuster. Why do we need pH adjuster? Because apparently, for some thickening agents to thicken, you need a proper pH. And also is to ensure that the pH of your hand rub is compatible with our skin. And then we have coloring, you have fragrance. And these two things are not essential for the functioning of this antimicrobial hand rub. I would like to focus more on denaturant because it matters to us. Now, alcohol is a very prized commodity, especially ethanol, because it gives you the kick. So people who love alcohol, they tend to be, how should I put it in words? They can be desperate at times lah. So sometimes when they couldn't find or they don't have enough money to purchase alcohol, they feel the urge to consume anything that has ethanol in it for them to have the kick. So to prevent people from abusing alcoholic hand rub, especially those that are based on ethanol, governments throughout the world, they have regulation whereby they will add in a chemical called denaturant to deter people from drinking the alcohol, right? So you see things like ethyl acetate, terbutyl alcohol, denatonium benzoate. So these three are typically allowed on cosmetic application. I want to draw your attention to methanol. Methanol, when it's applied on skin, it rarely causes poisoning lah. It matters because if you were to formulate your own alcoholic hand rub, when you have methanol, when you accidentally consume it, it could actually cause permanent blindness or even death. So I highlight here is because if you are using alcohol-based hand rub that has methanol in it, you need to be extra careful and prevent children from accidentally consuming them. Another thing would be, in some preparation, you find other antimicrobial agents like chlorhexidine, benzalkonium chloride, or even triclosan, right? So why do they add in these extra antimicrobial agents? Like if you could recall what I've told you earlier, alcohol do not have persistent activity. So when you add in these antimicrobial agents, you can actually prolong the antimicrobial effect. So moving on to skin conditioners. So earlier I told you that alcohol can be drying or dehydrating. So to counter the effect, typically we'll add in humectants. So what are humectants? Humectants are compounds that has the ability to pool water, right? So when you put in humectant, you can decrease the dehydrating or drying effect of the alcohol hand rub. So humectants that are typically used in alcohol-based hand rub include your glycerin, which is readily available, is dirt cheap, right? Ms. Chan will tell you where to get them later. So you can even use propylene glycol, butanediol. You also find emollients, which are skin conditioner. When you apply emollient, your skin tends to feel smoother, all right? Feel better. So it's something like hair conditioner. After you put it on your hair, you feel smoother, you feel better, okay? It appears better. And in some preparation, you find things like botanical extracts, aloe vera, ylang-ylang oil, so on and so forth. Okay, so if you go to a cosmetic shop, they also sell alcoholic-based hand rubs. So you see all these mumbo jumbo things added inside lah. So to be honest, this botanical extract is just to make their preparation more unique, so that the customers are more attracted to purchase their products. Okay, so they are not essential. Okay, now let us explore how these alcohol-based hand rub actually work. So in most organisms, right, including virus, so some biologists don't think that viruses are organisms, but it doesn't matter. In order for them to grow and to infect things, right, they require proteins called enzymes. So apparently, these are alcohol-based hand rub denature the proteins. Denature means it causes the shape to change. So when the shape of the protein changes, it can no longer carry out its function, right? So one thing to keep in mind is that your alcohol-based hand rub actually works by denaturing proteins, right? This is supported by the fact that in order for alcohol-based hand rub to work, it requires a certain percentage of water, and denaturation. In order for denaturation to work properly, you need water. Now, let us look at these numbers. Can you give it a guess what numbers are these? These are not your total 6D or total 5D. I know the economy is a little bit bad now. So these are not numbers, but there's no harm trying if you would like to, you know, give it a try. So this is not total 60. So these are just optimum concentration of alcohol to be used in the preparation. Okay, different organization, they have different different numbers lah. But typically you need above 60% of alcohol to work. Again, when I mention alcohol, I'm actually referring to the 3 alcohol, including your ethanol, isopropyl alcohol, and also your propan 1-ol. So only 3 alcohols have substantial antimicrobial activities. So let us go into these magic numbers. How do we derive these magic numbers? So this is based on one of the studies, hallmark studies done by a group of scientists. So we take a look. So don't worry about the names. They may sound a little bit foreign to you, but these are microorganisms, or rather bacteria, that typically cause hospital transmitted infections among patients. So you see Pseudomonas aeruginosa require a percentage of 30% to 100%. Serratia marcescens, E. coli, Salmonella typhosa require a percentage of between 40% to 100%. And Staphylococcus aureus and Streptococcus pyogenes is they are slightly more resistant. They require a percentage of between 60 to 95%. So this is about bacteria. So again, you will notice that if you use 70 to 75%, you can actually optimize, or rather you can broaden the range of microbes or pathogens that can be killed. So this is about bacteria. So in this study, it only takes 10 seconds to kill off the bacteria. So again, if you were to notice from this chart, why we don't use absolute or rather 100% ethanol or alcohol is because you can see certain organisms, 100%, it doesn't kill them very effectively. So we choose above 60%, 70%, or 75%. Okay, so most importantly, you must have sufficient concentration of alcohol in your preparation. So when you buy your alcohol based hand rub, please check the concentration. It's critical for them to have sufficiently high concentration for them to work properly. So let us move on to virus. So this matters to you because it's relevant to you right now. Okay, so basically people forget about other microbes lah. So now in their mind is the SARS-CoV-2 lah, which is responsible for the COVID-19. So in general, you need a concentration between 60% to 80% to kill off most viruses. So it includes some familiar viruses like HIV. Okay, if you are naughty, you play around, so you might get HIV, all those kind of things. So of course, alcohol-based hand rub is not to be used to bathe so that you can prevent HIV lah. So this is mainly to prevent contact transmission, not during sexual intercourse or whatever. So hepatitis B, influenza virus, herpes virus, they can be effectively killed. But caution here, not all viruses can be killed using alcohol preparation. For instance, hepatitis A and poliovirus, they are quite resistant to alcohol. So this you need to keep in mind. What about COVID-19? Yes, it's effectively eradicated using alcohol-based hand rub. Okay, so I found these very useful infographics from Popular Science. So you can see the alcohol-based hand rub kills a wide variety of microbes, including your bacteria, viruses, and also fungi. But certain microbes are not killed, most notably Clostridium difficile. Okay, foot and mouth disease are not also very effective, not effectively eradicated by alcohol. Hepatitis A and poliovirus that I have informed you earlier. So in general, these alcohol-based hand sanitizers are quite effective against gram-negative bacteria and also gram-positive bacteria with certain exceptions. I'll explain to you in the next slide. Now, certain type of bacteria, when exposed to adverse conditions, when they are exposed to adverse conditions, they will revert to a form called endospores. So endospores are very resistant. So alcohols, they are not very good at eradicating endospores. So this you have to keep in mind. So bacteria like Clostridium difficile, okay, as an example, when they revert to endospores, they are not effectively removed by alcohol-based hand rub. And also protozoan oocysts are not effectively eradicated. Okay, and more on the factors that actually influence the effectiveness of alcohol-based hand rub. All right. Okay, so number one is the volume. In one of the studies, it was shown that 1 ml of alcohol was significantly less effective than 3 ml. So you have to make sure that you must have sufficient volume. So these days, when you go to shopping complex, some of the vendors can be quite stingy. So they only put very, very small amount. So might as well don't put lah. So you have to make sure sufficient coverage, right? And the second study, it was also found that gel seemed to reduce the effectiveness of the alcohol hand rub. So we have many different forms of hand rub, some liquid form and some gel form. So apparently gel form does have an influence on the effectiveness of the hand rub. So the bottom line is to make sure proper coverage. Okay, now let us explore one of the news that have been circulating on your WhatsApp group. So some people have been circulating this news saying that you don't need to buy hand sanitizers. You can use your normal alcoholic beverage as hand sanitizers. So now let me answer this question. Is it a good idea? So to answer this question, it's worthwhile to look at the concentration of alcohol or ethanol. So our beverage is mainly composed of ethanol. So as you can see here, your normal beer, the concentration is only 4 to 7%. Wine, 12 to 15%. So vodka is slightly better, 40 to 43%. But keeping in mind what I've told you earlier, in order for you to effectively eradicate your viruses, you need a concentration of between 60 to 80%. So what is the answer? I'm sure that most of you have already gotten it. Okay. So if you were to use vodka, you might be able to kill a certain range of bacteria or fungi, but it's not effective against, it's not very effective against viruses. So we have come to the last part of my presentation, the safety aspects. So what you should and shouldn't do. So one thing to keep in mind, alcohols are flammable. So make sure you keep them away from fire sources. And secondly, alcohol is only for external use, only for external use. In fact, it's only recommended on hand because certain parts of your body, the skin can be quite sensitive. So do not use the alcohol as deodorant or to kill off germs in certain parts of your body. So it cannot work. And also, please do not consume the alcohol. Like what I've told you earlier, certain preparation contains traces of methanol as denaturant. So methanol can be harmful. So dozens of Iranians die from methanol poisoning. So hopefully it doesn't happen here in Malaysia. And please do not use alcohol to clean your wound. Do not use alcohol to clean your wound because it can be poisonous and it actually slow down healing. And before I end my presentation, let's have a look at the contrast between alcohol-based sanitizers and benzalkonium chloride-based sanitizers. So which one is better? So it depends on your application, right? For benzalkonium chloride-based sanitizers, the results sometimes are quite contradicting. So certain studies have found that they are effective against COVID-19, but certain studies shown that it's not very effective. However, it needs to be noted that the Singapore authority actually recommended several benzalkonium chloride-based hand sanitizers. The key difference here is the persistent activity, like what I've mentioned earlier, right? So it depends on your preference at the end of the day. So this marks the end of my presentation. So I've left some references and for your further reading. So most of the things that are presented here are from the CDC guidelines and also some from the Popular Science. All right. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop your question in the Q&A box. So thank you very much, everyone. And over to you, Lionel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ho. That was very insightful, moving from the history and the background of how hand sanitizers developed over into the details and technicality into what goes into hand sanitizers, what they contain, what they don't contain, how they work, especially, most importantly. Mr. Ho also covered very important cautionary steps that we need to be aware of in looking for hand sanitizers, sourcing for them, and also using them in daily life, right? As a preventive measure against viruses. Right. Moving on now to our second speaker, Ms. Chan will be continuing to focus on how hand sanitizers are formulated. And interestingly enough, Ms. Chan will also be showing you 2 DIY demonstrations of how you can formulate hand sanitizers at home for personal use. Ms. Chan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Lionel. Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Ho did a wonderful job giving us a good lecture about the science behind hand sanitizers. And now it's my turn. I'm going to share with you how to make hand sanitizers at home. Okay, today I'm going to share with you 2 recipes to make hand sanitizers. The first recipe is a recipe recommended by WHO, World Health Organization. The hand sanitizer contains 75% alcohol. The second recipe is a sanitizing hand gel recommended by the Australian Institute of Personal Care Science. And this hand gel contains 60% alcohol. Let us look at the ingredients needed to make the first recipe. WHO actually recommended 2 formulations for hand rub. The ingredients are pretty much similar. The difference is in terms of the alcohol used. The first formulation uses ethanol, 96%, while the second formulation uses isopropyl alcohol, 99.8%. So today, my demonstration will be using the second formulation. Now, the formulation recommended by WHO produces a total of 10,000 ml hand sanitizer. This equivalents to This is equivalent to 10 liters. So for personal use, we do not need so much hand sanitizer. So I'm going to show you how to scale it down so that we only make a total of 320 ml. So it's sufficient for personal use. Okay, so these are the ingredients needed for the first recipe. We need alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, glycerol, and water. Okay, the ingredients are just this few and it's relatively easy to make. Okay, what is interesting here is that I have done the calculation and make things convenient and simple for you. So to make 320 ml of hand sanitizer, we can actually measure all the ingredients using tools easily available in our kitchen, such as measuring spoons and measuring cups that you use for baking. Okay, so what do we need? We need 1 cup of alcohol, which is equivalent to 240 ml, 1 tablespoon of hydrogen peroxide, 15 ml, 1 teaspoon of glycerol, 5 ml, and lastly, a 1/4 cup of water, which is 60 ml, to top up to a total of 320 ml. So note that for this recipe, all the measurement is in volume. So ladies and gentlemen, now let us view the video how to do this hand sanitizer at home. Hi everyone, today I'm going to share with you how to make hand sanitizer using formulation recommended by WHO. First, I'm going to introduce the ingredients that we need. We need isopropyl alcohol, we need hydrogen peroxide, water, glycerin. As for the tools that we need, a measuring cup, a spatula for mixing, and a bottle to store the end product. This bottle, you got to label it with 75% alcohol because the end product that we make today contains 75% alcohol. Let's start. First, we need to measure 1 cup of isopropyl alcohol. 1 cup of isopropyl alcohol is equivalent to 240 ml. The next ingredient would be hydrogen peroxide, 1 tablespoon. 1 tablespoon of hydrogen peroxide is equivalent to 15 ml. Next, we need glycerin, 1 teaspoon. One teaspoon of glycerin is equivalent to 5 ml. Glycerin is very sticky, so you may need to stir a bit. And lastly, we need water, a 1/4 cup, which is 60 ml, to top up to 320 ml in total. Lastly, we need to give a good stir to our mixture. Your hand sanitizer is now ready. You may now pour it into the bottle. Here you go, hand sanitizer using formulation recommended by WHO. Now let us try our hand sanitizer. You may now rub your hand using the hand sanitizer that we have just produced. So ladies and gentlemen, that was the first recipe producing a hand sanitizer with 75% alcohol, and it is liquid in form. Now let us look at the second recipe. This is a sanitizing hand gel. Okay, this recipe is recommended by the Australian Institute of Personal Care Science. Okay, so if you look at the recipe, This recipe measures the ingredients by weight. So you would need a measuring scale for this recipe. Okay, so let us look at the ingredients. We need water, glycerin, xanthan gum, alcohol, and lastly, lavender essential oil. So later I'll also talk about other flavors of essential oil and why they are not suitable to be used in hand sanitizing gel. Okay, so now let us move on to the demonstration video. Hi everyone, I'm going to show to you another formulation to make hand sanitizer. This formulation is from the Australian Institute of Personal Care Science, and the final product of hand sanitizer contains 60% alcohol. Let us look at the tools that we need for this formulation. We need a weighing scale, we need spatula for mixing, or if you have a milk frother, it's also okay. We need a bottle to store our final product, and this bottle have to be labeled accordingly, 60% alcohol. The ingredients needed for this formulation, we have water, 36.4 gram, isopropyl alcohol, 60 gram, glycerin, 3 gram, xanthan gum, 0.3 gram, and lavender essential oil, 0.3 gram. This lavender essential oil of 0.3 gram is equivalent to 10 drops. I have measured the ingredients accordingly earlier, so we do not need the measuring scale now. Can just remove it first and start. The first step is to combine xanthan gum and glycerin, stir to make a slurry. This is how the slurry look like. The next step is to add slurry into water. Give it a good stir to ensure homogeneous. If you happen to have a milk frother, you can use it. Next is to combine lavender essential oil and alcohol. Give it a good stir. Now we have two beakers. One contains isopropyl alcohol added with lavender essential oil, and the second beaker contains mixture of water, glycerin, and xanthan gum. Now in this beaker, a smooth gel has formed. Next is to add alcohol into the gel mixture slowly, while continue to stir to ensure gel is smooth and properly formed. Here you go, our hand sanitizer with 60% alcohol, ready to be used. So ladies and gentlemen, that was the second recipe. Making a hand sanitizing gel. So based on your own preference, if you like the liquid type of hand sanitizer, you may pick the first recipe. However, if you prefer the gel type of hand sanitizer, then you may do the second recipe. Also, depending on the availability of the ingredients. Okay, so next, I would like to share with you where to get those ingredients. For example, chemicals like alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, these items can be easily sourced online using the e-commerce platform such as Shopee, Lazada. So when you purchase, make sure you type in the correct name. Okay. As for the other tools, those tools are easily available in shops like Mr. DIY and even shops selling baking ingredients. For example, xanthan gum is actually a food additive, so it can be easily purchased in shops selling baking ingredients. Okay, if now you are eager and excited to start making your hand sanitizer at home, I still have a few points to share with you. Hopefully you take note. First is the accuracy. You notice that two recipes measure the ingredients in different way. The first recipe measures in volume and the second recipe measures by weight. Which one is more accurate? Weight is more accurate than volume. However, volume is more convenient to be measured, but bear in mind it is also easily affected by temperature. Now, let us go to alcohol. As mentioned by Mr. Ho earlier, alcohol is the active ingredient to inactivate harmful microorganisms as well as viruses. Bear in mind, the concentration must be high enough for it to be effective, so it must be more than 60%. So is 60% good or 75% even better? It is always better to use a higher concentration of 75%. Why? Because alcohol evaporates over time. And when you purchase the alcohol, make sure it is of food grade or cosmetic grade or medical grade. Okay, next item, glycerol. The function is to moisturize your skin. The recommended range would be from 1 to 3%. Glycerol may give a sticky feeling, which some people don't like. So if you don't like the sticky feeling of glycerol, it can be replaced with propylene glycol. Okay, so we move on to xanthan gum, which is a thickening agent and a stabilizer. It could hold up to 60% alcohol. And the good thing about xanthan gum is that you don't have to adjust the pH, and it's available at bakery shop. The brand that we recommend is Caltro because it gives a clear finishing. As for hydrogen peroxide, you notice it is needed in the first recipe. The function is to kill spores in the solution, not on your hand. Okay, now we've come to essential oil. Note that the second recipe call for essential oil. The idea of adding essential oil is actually to cover the alcohol smell, which some people don't like. However, bear in mind, the addition of essential oil may increase the risk of sensitivity, which is allergy. And also, there are a few flavors that you should totally avoid, such as bergamot, bitter orange, lemon, grapefruit, and so on. Because these would, number one, leave stain on your skin, and more importantly, it would irritate your skin when exposed to sunlight. So a better choice would be to use lavender or tea tree oil. Lastly, we need water in our formulation, so make sure the water must be boiled and cool. And best if you could autoclave the water. Okay, let's say now you have already made your hand sanitizer. There are still a few important points that I would like to highlight once again. These hand sanitizers that you made at home is only for your own use. Please do not sell, because in Malaysia, if you want to sell hand sanitizers, it requires approval from the Ministry of Health, KKM. Store the hand sanitizer properly, keep out of reach of your children. It is flammable, so keep away from flame and heat source. And like what Mr. Ho mentioned earlier, it is only for external use and avoid contact with eyes. So lastly, want to remind one more time, when you want to use this hand sanitizer and for it to be effective, apply a palmful and cover all surfaces of your hand. Rub your hands until it dries. This would require about 20 seconds. Now, I believe some of you may be searching online for a suitable recipe to make hand sanitizer, and you may come across this recipe that requires aloe vera gel mixed with alcohol. Some of you may have even tried this at home and found out that it doesn't work. It doesn't mix well or may separate to form slimy clumps. Okay, the reason is because to make hand sanitizers, sometimes some additives are needed actually. For example, thickening agent, emulsifying agent, and so on, in order to hold the mixture together when alcohol is needed. Else, the polymer may precipitate. So that is the reason why when you try to do this at home, it may not work. But bear in mind, those of you who like the gel type of hand sanitizer, like what Mr. Ho mentioned earlier, the addition of gel may reduce the effectiveness of the hand sanitizer. Now, hand sanitizers may be very convenient. However, the advice from WHO and CDC is that whenever possible, still you need to wash your hands with soap and water, and that is the best because it reduces the amounts of all types of germs. Okay, if soap and water is not available, then the second best option, of course, is to use a hand sanitizer with high concentration of alcohol, which is above 60%. Now, talking about washing hands with soap and water and make sure it is effective. Okay, at the end of, before I end my presentation, I would like to share with you the correct way of washing hands. Okay, so first we have to wet our hands with water, apply soap. Next, lather your hands by rubbing them together with the soap. When you rub your hands, make sure you cover all surfaces, including your palms, backs, fingers, between your fingers and under your nails. Keep rubbing for 20 seconds. It is the rubbing part that requires 20 seconds. Now, how long is 20 seconds? You can easily sing Happy Birthday song twice. That would be 20 seconds. Okay, so after you have done that, rinse your hands under clean running water and finally dry your hand. So ladies and gentlemen, that is all my presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chan, for the very insightful 2 demonstrations of how we can formulate hand sanitizers at home. The first one based on the WHO guidelines, the second one based on the Australian Institute of Personal Care Science guidelines. Right, so audience, Ms. Chan, alongside Mr. Ho, have actually brought to us the science behind hand sanitizers in a way that is practical and understandable, applicable enough for all of us, hopefully. So with these cautionary steps, as well as the guidelines as to how to choose ingredients and making sure that they are of reliable quality, together with the step-by-step guides as to how to formulate your own hand sanitizers at home, as well as the happy birthday song that you will sing in order to sanitize your hands. We'll now move on to a special question and answer session. I will be drawing questions from the question and answer box. Now, viewers, although we would love to answer and address all questions that you have actually dropped in the box, we are actually lacking in time. So because of time constraint, we'll do the best that we can. And we'll begin with a question that is directed to you, Ms. Chan. Ms. Chan, there's a question as to what we can do with expired hand sanitizers. Is it safe to use them?
Okay, thank you for the question, Lionel. When we purchase hand sanitizers, you notice that it is with an expiry date. So this expiry date is actually an estimated date where the concentration of alcohol in the hand sanitizer would dip below 60%. So bear in mind, alcohol does evaporate over time. So especially if you don't close your container properly. So if you don't close your container properly and you leave the hand sanitizer at a warm place such as in your car, so it would speed up the rate of evaporation. So when you see that the hand sanitizer has expired, so most probably the concentration of alcohol has already dipped below 60% and is not effective anymore. So the best and safe way is to discard it and use a new bottle of hand sanitizer, which will be effective.
Thank you, Ms. Chan. I hope that answers your questions on the expiration of hand sanitizers. Another question here has come in regarding the possibility of adding fragrance or perfume. And when we add these fragrances or perfume to hand sanitizer, does it influence the effectiveness? Perhaps Mr. Ho, you can try answering this.
Yeah, sure. So there has not been enough studies to indicate that addition of perfume or fragrances actually reduce the effectiveness. So far I haven't come across such studies. Perhaps some of the researchers could take up this challenge to investigate whether there's a link between reduced effectiveness. But what is for sure that when you add fragrances or perfume, you actually increase the risk of what you call that hypersensitivity. So in general, it's quite safe lah. So in our cosmetics and all those, we do have some fragrances. So to majority of people, it wouldn't be any problem lah, right?
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ho. Another question. Since methanol is present in the hand sanitizers, after using the hand sanitizers on our hands, is it then going to be harmful to use our fingers or hands to eat? Perhaps Mr. Ho?
Okay, I'll answer.
Yeah. Yep.
So like what I've presented earlier about the ingredients. So the active ingredient, the most important ingredient would be the alcohol, which is the ethanol, right? So like what I've mentioned, the regulations require this denaturant to be added into the alcohol, right? So typically for cosmetic grade, we don't add in methanol, right? If you were to buy this alcohol from the hardware shop, chances are you'll get some methanol inside. So usually methanol, when it's applied on the skin, although it's toxic, right? It doesn't usually cause much problem unless ingested. So in fact, some pharmacies still carry methanol as an antimicrobial agent in spite of we knowing that they are not quite effective, all right? So what we can urge you is that if you really decide to use those with methanol, keep them away from children and do not ingest them, right? So we strongly recommend you to get ethanol or isopropyl alcohol, which are cosmetic grade. So if you browse to Shopee, you will get suppliers that actually supply the raw materials for cosmetic stuff. So they do carry these cosmetic grade or so-called USP grade isopropyl alcohol and also ethanol.
Right, thank you, Mr. Ho. On the topic of actually purchasing or obtaining hand sanitizers from retailers, there's a concern actually with more than one individual. They've asked how it's possible to identify, if we're buying, how it's possible to identify if hand sanitizer is authentic versus fake.
Ms. Chan, would you like to answer this one?
Perhaps Ms. Chan can take this question.
Okay, in Malaysia, as I mentioned earlier, if you want to sell hand sanitizer, you must obtain permit from KKM. So when you purchase hand sanitizer, check the bottle and look for labels. The legitimate hand sanitizers would have approval from the authority.
Okay, may I add on?
Sure, Mr. Ho.
Like what Ms. Chan has mentioned, you have the approval number, and you can always go to the KKM website and counter check whether the hand sanitizer that you purchase is indeed registered or not.
Right. Thank you very much. I guess from what Ms. Chan and Mr. Ho have provided in their answer, it is going to be necessary for us to go that extra mile to ensure that we're using whatever items we're purchasing are actually safe for use. And it will require some kind of checking, some kind of verification, failing which it's probably best to not purchase, right? We have another question that actually a few questions concerning the ingredients that are recommended, Ms. Chan, specifically for the 2 recipes that you suggested based on WHO and Australian Institute of Personal Care Science, yeah? Are these ingredients, especially the ones that are alcohol-based, are they going to be readily available at shops that sell medical supplies or pharmacies?
Yes, you can try that. When we made the demonstration video that I showed earlier, it was during MCO period. So all our ingredients, the chemicals were actually sourced online. But now, I suppose you can get from drugstore or pharmacy. I believe these materials are easily available. If not, then can always source your materials online.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Chan. There's also concern on how safe it is to leave hand sanitizers in cars, as a lot of, I think, social media coverage has been placed lately on so-called dangers. So either one of you could perhaps take this question.
Okay, I think I will answer this one.
Sure.
So, of course, we don't recommend you to put it inside the car. As you know, our climate is quite hot, right? So there's always a chance of combustion, right? So far, we only see one case which is reported on social media, but it's not picked up by the main media. So we are not sure whether it's really indeed caused by the combustion of these hand sanitizers. But what I can say that there are cases happening in the US whereby it was reported that it actually caused a fire in a hospital. So sparks, right? Sometimes during medical procedure you have sparks. So apparently this fire was attributed to this spark of alcoholic hand rub. So like what Ms. Chan has mentioned earlier, when you use your alcohol hand rub, make sure you don't go near to the fire source. Right? Remind your parents or your mother when it's cooking, use soap and water, so don't use your alcohol hand rub. Okay.
Right. Great. Thanks, Mr. Ho. Now, in relation to hand sanitizers that are obtained from outside, those that we don't end up making ourselves, when we move around into shopping malls or into clinics and there are hand sanitizers readily available in bottles, so we actually squirt it out and use it in the hope that it will sanitize our hands sufficiently. So there's a question: how do we know if the hand sanitizers given to you at malls and in public, if they are sufficient to kill the COVID-19 virus? Is it sufficient to, for example, run a smell check to see if it's enough?
Perhaps I'll take this question.
Yes, Ms. Chan.
I think you can check the bottle of the hand sanitizer, check the percentage. It should be 60% and above for the alcohol percentage. Next, check whether the hand sanitizer is properly approved, right? And regarding whether we can do a smell check, sometimes hand sanitizers are added with fragrance or perfume, so that would also mask the smell of alcohol, and is I wouldn't say it is an accurate method to check whether the concentration is high.
Okay, I think I will add to that.
Sure,
so,
Mr. Ho.
To be honest, there's no way of checking. The sniff test is not a very accurate or reliable method of checking the hand sanitizers. So whenever there is, when you are in doubt, it's better to bring your own. Like when you go to shopping complexes, there are different brands and sometimes you can't even check because it's not labeled properly. So it's better to bring your own hand sanitizers when you're in doubt. It's always better, right?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Ho. So a couple of our viewers have also asked a common question. I know you've covered this, Mr. Ho, as well as Ms. Chan, as to the fact that it's probably best not to overuse hand sanitizers. There's a related question. Not wanting to overuse it, at the same time not wanting to underuse it, how frequently do we have to apply hand sanitizers to be considered safe? So perhaps, Mr. Ho, you can try addressing this one.
Okay, there's no easy answer to this one because different individual may have different sensitivity towards different chemicals, right? So the bottom line is that when you have access to water or soap, you always use water and soap, right? Unless you have no choice, when you go to the market, you cannot find water source, so you can use your hand sanitizers. And when you are at home, when it's safe, so you don't need to sanitize your hand using alcohol-based hand rub. We don't see the point of doing this, right? So be moderate and be reasonable when you're using this alcohol-based hand rub. So when you have water and soap, that would be sufficient.
Thank you, Mr. Ho, for that reminder. Now, this question next is specifically related to COVID-19. It's causing lots of concern among our viewers. So there's a question, specifically, can we identify a specific minimum concentration required for the hand sanitizer to be effective to kill COVID-19?
Like what we have mentioned earlier, 60% would be sufficient. 60% is the minimum.
Right.
It's the recommended. Yeah.
So it's safe to say that if a person has purchased hand sanitizer at 60% alcohol content, he or she can actually feel a little more relaxed that they have actually killed, if there is COVID-19 bacteria or virus on their hands.
Yeah, we could say that 60 to 80% is the recommended range to kill viruses.
Okay, great. Now, that is unfortunately all the time that we have for questions and answers today. Viewers, we've actually listened to two talks from expert staff members of Center for Foundation Studies, Kampar campus of UTAR. They have actually introduced us to a little bit of the history and the development of hand sanitizers. They've taken us into the details as to what makes them effective and what doesn't, what are the active ingredients and the inactive ingredients, the chemical compounds at play. We've also been able to witness two demonstrations of how we can formulate them at home. Now, of course, a word of caution for all of us is if there are viewers who are under the age, under the legal age to actually purchase alcohol or to work with alcohol products, it is always necessary for you to be accompanied by a capable adult or carer, right? Also, another thing to keep in mind is that the hand sanitizer home formulations or the DIYs that were specified, once again, were only specified for you to create hand sanitizers for personal use, not for circulation or any kind of retail. Right. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, dear viewers, I thank you all for spending your time with us in this webinar. I would like to thank Mr. Ho, our first speaker, as well as Ms. Chan Jer Jing, both from the Center for Foundation Studies, Kampar campus. Now, ladies and gentlemen, viewers, allow me to share one last slide with you. Just before you leave, those of you from UTAR, staff and students, please don't forget to scan the QR code. I also note that some of you are having problems with the scanning of the QR code. It's also possible for you to just access this link and sign out using it. If you're not able to, I will actually copy and paste it in the chat box. You can access it there. It will ease you into your signing out. But please take note that you have to sign out for you to be eligible to earn those CPD points as well as USSDC points. Right? So once again, thank you very much for joining us. And I will now pass you back on to our host, Mr. Tam.
Hello, thank you, Mr. Lionel. And sure, thank you for Mr. Ho and Ms. Chan. Before we go to the end, allow me to brief about UTAR Foundation programs. So UTAR Foundation program is a wise choice after SPM. We do offer the Foundation in Arts and Foundation in Science, both in 1 year durations. Foundation in Arts preparing students for art and social science, management and accountancy, English and Chinese language related bachelor degree programs in UTAR. And for Foundation in Science, preparing students for physical science, biological science, informational technology related bachelor degree programs in UTAR. For minimum entry requirement, you have to pass your SPM or O levels in at least 5 credits, means that 5C. If you consider to use other qualifications to apply, you can contact us for details. It's great that to announce that in Times Higher Education's THE ranking year 2020, UTAR has been ranked as 119th at Asia University ranking. In Malaysia, it means that second place just after We are now just come to the end, but this is not the last. We have more webinar to come. Stay tuned with us. For today's webinar, the recorded video is available on Facebook page UTAR for You. You can see this on the slide, UTAR for You. And if you have any further inquiry, you can chat with us through the WhatsApp or even the WeChat website or the email. Coming soon, we will have the webinar forums, how to prepare your child for IR4, the role of parents, on 22nd July at 2 p.m. You can visit to our website, study.utar.edu.my to register for the Zoom Live. Thanks for the watching. Wish you a good day. Bye-bye.